Good evening. Welcome to Underscore, where we stress the importance of the fine arts in Norman Public Schools. I'm your host, John Clinton, Director of Fine Arts for the Public Schools. We've been carrying for you a series of shows where we have been talking about the new teachers to our program in the Norman Public Schools, and we have another one of those people with us. This is Mr. Jay Broker. Jay, welcome. Jay is the music teacher at Adams Elementary School, and we're really pleased that you have come to Norman. Now, we were really lucky to get you here because this happened just at the last minute for us. And I want to give the people out there a background. Deanie Castaguera, who was the teacher there up until this year, was transferred to Whittier Middle School, and that happened pretty late in the summer. And then just by some quirk, we got a phone call from Melvin Platt out at OU saying, we have this graduate student, we'd like to do this, would you mind talking to Jay Broker? And of course not. And probably was not because of the quickness of our need, because we still had a few weeks we could work there. But Jay, I want you to know that I don't think I've ever hired anybody faster. That was the fastest it's ever happened. You came in for an interview, and just within a matter of, it seemed like a few minutes after that, we had a new music teacher at Adams Elementary School. Were you equally surprised by that?
Yes, and I was glad that it happened that way. But that's probably the fastest I've ever gone through the process either.
I want you to know it normally takes us somewhere right around 3 years to hire someone. No, not quite that long. But it seems like for us, because we are very cautious, about checking through this, and we did all those checkings. It's just that it all fit together really well, and Don Lynn, the principal at Adams, was pleased with the interview and all the different things we found out about you. So I'm glad you're in Norman, and I'm glad it worked so well. But you have been in Norman just a very short time now, and knowing your background, you have been in a lot of different places with a lot of different experiences. Where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Indiana. I'm a native Hoosier, as they would say.
Yes.
Grew up and went to school there and attended Indiana University for my undergraduate degree. Then when I graduated, taught a couple of years in Spring School District, which is just north of Houston.
Yes.
Went back to Indiana University for graduate work and then stayed there teaching for about 3 years while my wife was in grad school. And now here we are.
That's terrific. That's good. Now, when you were in undergraduate school, I'm going to ask you some questions that I ask almost everybody in the fine arts because it is one of those areas that is particularly interesting to me, but also I think people have a wrong idea about what music teachers view themselves as being, or at least they have an idea that has been contrary to what I've found about it. When you entered into the undergraduate music field, your whole goal in life was, at that time, to teach elementary music, right?
No.
No. Missed it again.
No. I was from a small town, and I thought I was going to be the next piano genius of the world. And I went to the Indiana University to study piano and become a famous concert artist. And after just a short while, namely the fact that I wasn't accepted as a piano major, I realized that was probably not going to be the case. I didn't have any desire to be a music teacher, but that was the only option they gave me. They said, well, you have to take something, so take these classes. And that's where I started. And after a few skeptical days, I had a really wonderful teacher for my first introduction to music ed class, who started doing things with us, and I began to realize, well, this is pretty exciting stuff. And I don't remember doing any of this back when I was in elementary school, or even in middle school, and I began to see that this could be a lot more exciting than simply sitting in a practice room playing the piano all day. So that's sort of where I came from and how I got into it.
I had a friend, when you talked about the piano in practice room, I had a friend who was at North Texas State University, a wonderful pianist, who won auditions to perform with Anshel Brusiloff in the symphony. She was just played the Mozart C major, I think it was, and it was just wonderful what she did. And right after that semester, she completed her master's in piano performance, promptly dropped out of music, and went to med school. And I saw her about a year later, and I know this is not true all the way through, but it was just an interesting time for me to be discovering this. And she said, I asked her, how's it going? I said, med school, my goodness. She says, are you kidding? She says, med school is not easy, but it's sitting in a practice room by yourself,
Yeah.
that takes discipline.
Yeah.
That was very hard to do, and so medical school has been, even though there's a lot of factual things and an excessive amount of things to learn, it has not been a difficult change for me to go from one thing that was very difficult to something else that was very difficult. Well, thank goodness for that first teacher that you had,
Yeah.
that got you involved in all sorts of things here, because you have done a lot of things. When you went to Houston, you went to Spring, Texas. That's a large school district, isn't it?
Yes, it's actually probably at that time was about the size of Norman, maybe a bit larger. They had split just previously into 2 high schools.
Right.
But it's, I'd say, a comparable size district, but I was in a very large elementary school.
How large was that elementary school?
There were close to 900 students by the time
Wow.
I left there.
Now, that's just a little bit larger. We have large elementary schools here, 750, 760, but that's larger than what we have here. Were you by yourself in that school as a music teacher?
The first year I was,
Oh, my
yes.
goodness.
They had made a commitment to doing some things with the elementary music program. And the year that I came in, I was hired along with 6 other elementary music teachers. So half of the staff was new, and there were one of us in each building, regardless of the size. I saw all the kids for music every day for 20 minutes, which means they came in groups of about 75
Wow.
for 13 half-hour periods. The next year, because, as I said, they did have this commitment to developing a program, they saw that that wasn't going to be enough, and they hired, I believe, 4 additional teachers, perhaps 3, who then were half-time, similar to what
we're
some of the
doing now.
teachers are doing here, half-time
Good.
at one school and half-time at another.
That must have been incredible, 75 or so kids every 20 minutes. Did you just go to the bathroom every weekend?
Basically,
That's all you had
basically,
time
yeah.
for.
Went to school, went home at night, went to the bathroom, and went to sleep.
Yeah, was it really frustrating to you to try to teach in that situation?
No, because obviously it is for a lot of reasons. Number one, you don't get to develop a relationship with the individual student. You just sort of teach at a mass of whoever's there. However, there are some things that are rewarding about it. I mean, that you can be accomplished. The emphasis that I place on singing and movement type of activities, which don't require a lot of setup or space. I was also teaching in the multi-purpose room, so I had a huge space, and we would have 14 circles of people square dancing all at once. Those kind of things could be accomplished, and singing things and music, reading, writing activities can be done with 10 people or 100. What's missing, though, is that getting to know the kids and their individual needs and their individual abilities.
Which is really important.
Sure.
And that as a human being just becomes very frustrating.
Yes, yes. But as a sort of professional music teacher, I did what I could.
Well, sure, and you have to do that. But that's got to be one of the things, at least from my perspective, that attracts me to teaching, is that I tell my orchestra each year that as long as you treat me like a human being, I will treat you like one. And I expect that to happen for both of us. Now, please notice that I didn't say, you treat me like an adult and I'll treat you like an adult. Because adults, by and large, don't treat people very well.
No,
and
not at all.
I am really interested in working with students here. And so I expect you to treat me like a human being, and we'll just treat each other. And it works out wonderfully. So that's one of the things, at least from my perspective, that makes teaching, as opposed to performing, one of the real great rewards that comes through that, because you can work with those kind of kids an awful lot. Now, Jay, you have some extensive backgrounds in a lot of different areas. You have an undergraduate degree in music education, of course, but you also have Kodály certification, and you also have ORF certification, and which is not a rarity these days. It's beginning to become more and more that people have those, but Kodály has been heard of, recently. ORF maybe not quite so much outside of the field of music. Can you tell us a little bit about what ORF is?
Well, I can give you my idea of what I think it is.
Good.
And I think that when I think of it, I go back to where ORF began. And whereas Kodály began with essentially an illiterate, as he conceived it, population, and wanted to educate a huge mass of people, he developed a very structured curriculum and ideas about how to go about educating a big number of people for certain objectives. ORF, on the other hand, saw in education and music education in Germany a very rigid, structured 19th century approach to education. And he wanted to give the students an opportunity to be creative in a way that they were not being allowed to. And so he tore apart and threw away quite a bit of the rigidity that was involved. He began investigating other world musics and developed what's called the elemental style, which reduces music down to some very simple principles. Use of pentatonics, melodic patterns, use of ostinati or repeated rhythmic patterns, which allows the students to create things from the very beginning. And therefore more of his emphasis was placed on getting students involved in creating and improvising rather than teaching to a certain structured objective.
Quite different, yet should be, because of what you said, the historical background of each one of those people. They were men for their times and for their particular culture and what was going on with that. Now, when you're over at Adams, and we'll put this all back together again with Kodály North, when you're over at Adams and you're working with those students over there, what are some of the things that you're looking for those students to get out of your instruction and their learning process?
Well, to put it all back together, I see that the creative process in music or in anything involves both of those types of things. And in this country and at Adams Elementary School, we try to have, we have a curriculum with specific objectives, but within those objectives and within our lessons each day, we want to allow the kids to explore this process of creating things, finding out what they know, what they can do, how they can use the information and knowledge and skills that they have, and create, in a sense, products that are their own. And that's essentially what I try to do in each lesson, whether it's through singing or movement or playing instruments or listening. We give them basic experiences to develop skills and concepts that they can then use to explore their potential as a musician.
Yeah, that's great. It's got to be a real rewarding feeling to see those kids develop like that.
It is. And it goes back to what you said before about treating them as human beings or developing that human relationship and seeing them as a person who has specific abilities, certain things they want to express, certain things they have the capability of expressing, and giving them the capability to do some of those things and to be able to step back and see what they've done. And it's such a good feeling for me to see them appreciating what they've done.
Do you see, I know you've been there a short time, so pardon me for trying to get in-depth questions that are difficult to do, but have you been able to see that you have a variety of different levels of aptitude and of achievement among the students at Adams?
Oh, certainly, and that would be expected, in any case, but yes, that's true. I've seen quite a few of them, participating in things, and you see that little twinkle in the eye, or you see the wheels turning, and you know that they're really moving ahead and working on. And there are some that are a little reticent to participate because perhaps it's different from what they had done before, or they don't have the skills, but they still jump in and work at it, and they can benefit from it. So.
Do you find it hard at all, or not really difficult, I'm sure, but with so many levels in one class, for instance? The last thing that I personally want to do is try to level out a music class, so you have all of this and all of that. But do you find that difficult, or at least a challenge, to try to make sure that everybody in that classroom is learning that day?
Yes, that's, I think, a challenge for any teacher, is finding ways of adapting whatever instruction is going on to the needs of each individual and to their abilities on that particular day, or even their mood on that particular day.
Right.
The ORF approach is particularly good for that because it incorporates a large amount of improvisation, which is essentially we deal with a concept or a certain melodic or rhythmic element or movement element of the day, and then in part of the experience they create something using those materials. Now those students who have lots of ideas and who have extensive skills can create complicated products. Those students who are at a different level can create simpler products, still going through the same process. But they can have those results at their own level.
it seems to me then that from what you're telling me that the process is significantly more important than what the product is.
I think you get to be a certified org teacher.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that at that time.
Yes, that's the sort of buzzword, that the process is more important than the product.
Is that right? Yeah.
Because it's in going through the process and exploring what's there and what you understand and what you don't understand and what makes sense to you that you learn. Of course, it's nice to perform it for other people and share it with other people. And if they're coming from where you're coming from, then they can benefit from that too.
Yeah. My idea behind that is, and I may not be a pure orphist here then because of this, but the process I believe is the most important thing for the reasons you just gave, but also because if the process is taken care of, the product is always what it should be.
Sure.
You don't worry about the product anymore.
Sure. It's an honest thing that the students are involved in and that they've created, and it has to have quite a bit of integrity for that reason.
Yeah.
It's not something that I've said, do this, do that, follow instructions. In that sense, the product ends up just being me.
Right.
And they're not a part of the product.
Right.
But
there's a time and a place for both of those things.
Sure.
But within that particular genre of doing things, that's the way it works. I think it's fantastic. When you have your kids leave Adams and they go out into the world of middle schools, which is a big world for them right there, what kind of values in music do you want them to take with you?
Gosh, I think the important thing is that I want them to have discovered through the millions of activities that we do and the millions of ways that we approach what music can be. I want them to have found something about music that they see can be a part of them. Whether that's singing in a choir or in a very structured situation, whether it's some interest in playing an instrument that might, even some years down the road, motivate them to take lessons or to study an instrument.
Sure.
Whether it's dancing or movement, or whether it's knowing that I like to make up songs and I'll sit in my room and play the guitar and make up songs.
Yeah.
Something that they can take, that music can be a part of their life.
That's terrific. That's good. Now, we need to get out of all the serious stuff.
Okay.
Just long enough to say something that is probably on most people's minds. Because in Norman, we've been really lucky because we have some great elementary music teachers, have had some great elementary music teachers. But we've only had one male elementary music teacher, Bob Kidd over at Eisenhower, and we're lucky enough to have two. How do you fit into this world that is mainly a female-dominated, it seems like, world? Is that pretty comfortable for you?
It's okay. It's fine by me. I think most elementary teachers, male elementary teachers, are in that same situation.
Yes.
It's not particularly music teachers.
Right.
And I think that, I don't really know how to explain it. Historically, we know why there are primarily women there, but I think that not enough men are given that as an option. There are other things that they're encouraged to do.
Right.
But, this is about the most exciting thing I could be doing right now.
It truly is. It's unfortunate for our student population in music or whatever it may be that more men haven't realized the fulfillment that comes from doing this sort of work, because it is pretty mind-boggling what goes on. For instance, you're getting ready to, in the next few weeks, to be putting on the All-City 5th Grade Choral Concert on November the 9th. Now, if it's not anybody who thinks it's not exciting to get together with somewhere right around 800 and some odd 5th grade students in one place. Now, everybody who's a mother or a father, all they have to do is remember what their child was like as a 5th grader, multiply that by 800, and put them all in one place, and to see that those students can actually work together, and they can produce an incredible product, and they can be terrific to work with. That's got to be a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And we've talked about some processes and a lot of things now, but you're getting ready now with this particular one to take some sheet music and to start doing some real performance. What kind of techniques do you go through to help those kids learn? They're going to be doing some Vaughan Williams. They're going to do some Latin pieces. I'm trying to remember all the different things. Some of them light, some of them quite serious, but all of them must be well done.
Yes.
What kind of things do you go through to help those kids learn those techniques?
Oh gosh, everything, including standing on my head, and whatever it takes.
Yeah, that's right.
These kind of situations.
A true conductor, right?
Right.
That's
become very teacher-directed, and I've had experience with adult choirs and youth choirs and elementary school choirs, and you just develop a bag of tricks. You know, the first thing before we can really even get the music in our hands is we've got to get our singing voice going.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to develop some sort of rapport with me, so they're responding to me. That's usually the most difficult part. There are ways of teaching these pieces by rote.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways of using these pieces as teaching tools whereby they tie in with another activity we did another day, and it transfers to, say, certain phrase structure, and
Right.
therefore the piece is more easily learned. But basically, it's just a lot of really hard work.
Right.
For
Now,
them.
you said some experiences, and that reminded me of something.
Mm-hmm.
You have had some significant experience with youth choruses.
Mm-hmm.
You worked, was it the Indianapolis, or St. Louis? I can't remember.
I worked with the Indianapolis Children's
Okay.
Choir for a while, and then I also have spent a number of years working with the University Children's Choir in Bloomington with Mary Getz.
Okay, very good. Now, that gives you some real expertise in the area of youth choirs, because that's a lot of experience, and that's something that is not unique to that area, but it's just beginning in our area. For instance, the Children's Chorus and the Academy Singers that the Harrison Academy has been working with in Oklahoma City, Judith Burns and some other people who work with that. That's got to be different than elementary music, I know, but at the same time, an offshoot of that that makes you can cover both areas pretty well.
Sure. It gives students who really find that rewarding something to really enjoy and to hang on to. I think the way I may differ from a number of other people who have had choral experience or who are choir directors is that I tend to approach it in the same way that I approach teaching first graders or fifth graders any sort of music, in that we want to explore what this piece is and what it means to us and what we can do with it. And as you pointed out before, if the process of going about learning the piece and studying the music is solid, then the product is going to come out, whether it's choral music or instrumental music.
Do you ever panic? I know that you know that, but do you ever panic towards the end of that process time and say, this time it's not going to work?
Of course. As we get down to the last days and you've done everything you can and the kids have learned so much from this experience, but you only know half the piece and you've got to sing it next week. And there are times when you panic and you just start cramming things down their throat or you drag them along with you. But you go with what you've got. You know, whatever they can do is what they can do.
Right.
And that's what I'm looking for from them.
You know, some, no, certainly not all, but some secondary and some upper-level performing conductors have this habit of, when they get down to that final wire and they haven't got it all learned, you know whose fault it is, right? It's the kid's fault.
Right.
And they got to yell at them and they got to scream at them, which makes them learn it a lot faster. Somehow or another.
Sure. I mean, it's a very efficient way of achieving a basic objective of being able to know the words and know how the tune goes and know the rhythm.
Right.
Now, whether that turns out to be music or not is another question.
Different story.
And that's where I think this process, again, is so important. If you approach it as a piece of music and the objective being creating a piece of music, then whether they get every note exactly or whether they forget some of the third verse or whether they don't all put the T's on in the right place is insignificant because they will be performing a piece of music.
Yes.
So I don't very often get into that mode of screaming and yelling about notes at the last minute.
I'm hopeful that as we become more mature in our profession, that we realize that, yes, we are shooting for X level. But the reason why we don't get there generally has a lot to do with us and how we have either motivated them or what we have told them or how that all works. Sometimes, as everyone knows, in every profession, pushing someone and exerting them to do better is not bad. Those things occur.
Sure.
But, you know, we use all those tricks of motivation to make sure that the students get everything they can out of it, and the final product is the final product.
Exactly.
And that's the end of that story for us. That's good. Well, Jay, it's really good to have you in Norman. You bring a fresh perspective to what can be happening with our students here, and I know that the people over at Adams Elementary School are glad to have you here. And we're looking forward to maybe having you back on here, and you can tell us at the end of the year what it was like to be in Norman the first year.
All right, that sounds good.
We appreciate having you here, and hope that you'll enjoy your stay in Norman and be a long time for us.
Well, thank you.
Good. And thank you for joining us, and we have stressed the importance of the fine arts in the Norman Public Schools.